Right, hello and welcome to the very first episode of the University and Everything in Between podcast. It took me quite a while to figure out that name. Just like everything else, this process seems to be quite lengthy and quite, specific, but it's been a lot of fun, but hopefully this first episode goes well. But the main aim of this podcast is to create a centralized location for all these new students as well as current students to find a place where you can hear about related stories going through the university experience. You can, find out tips and advice about getting through and things that might be useful and that might work for you. And you can also hear about unique perspectives that you probably aren't exposed to on a daily basis. That's the aim of the podcast. And hopefully that goes well. For the first episode today, I'm joined with Dylan, and it's very nice. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's really good to have you on. I thought I'd just touch on a little bit to begin with about how this came about, just for some context for the first episode. So it sort of began when you approached me to do a short video for your channel, which I was very honoured to be a part of, I have to say.
Yeah. So I remember you must have been asking me to go on the York University radio show because you're a big part of that. You run that, whatever.
Yeah.
And, he kept saying, oh, let's do it. And I don't know, so here and there, like things got a bit hectic and we never really got around to doing it. And
I regret that. Trust me.
And then Corona came, obviously, so we didn't have time in the last term. But I must have hit you up instead. I was like, oh, man, would love to come on the radio show at some point. Would you mind helping me film this video? And this video was kind of like as if I was being interviewed about my kind of future journey in a very casual way. So I must have hit you up. I was like, yo, Liam, do you want to help me do this video? I know you're the radio man, interview man. So you did. And then uploaded it to YouTube. And then, we got some pretty good feedback. Well, you especially got some good feedback.
I was surprised. I have to admit to you, and I've said to you this before, I didn't look at that video properly for quite a while because the feeling of being on a video is quite strange. It's you get over that feeling of hearing my voice a lot because I do a lot of audio related work, but not. This is the first time I've done proper visual related work, so it was quite strange going on that video. But there was quite a few comments about possibly starting a podcast, which was
and I think you've got the perfect radio voice as well. They can probably hear it right now, but there's something about your voice. It's got a good timbre. And you said, yeah, it's good. You said about what was it about hearing your voice and then that sort of thing. Do you find that obviously when people who don't do, let's say, radio or TV or whatever, they hear their voice, they're like, oh, I hate my voice. Do you ever find that with when you first saw the camera, you didn't want to look at it in case you didn't like the way you looked on camera or thought you was awkward or?
So I remember distinctly when we were setting up to do some of those shots, and I was trying not to make it too obvious that I was obsessing over whether I looked okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh God, is my hair all right?
Yeah, no, it's true.
So
though.
yeah, it is. But in terms of the radio voice, I did YouTube when I was very, very young. I think I started when I was about 10. So I have been listening to my own voice for quite a long time.
See the development from 10-year-old Liam, high-pitched, squeaky voice to breaky voice about 14, 15, and then manly voice now. Voice.
It's intense, yeah, for sure. But that video that we did was all about what you are planning to do after you graduate, and it was sort of a bit of almost an expose of yourself, because you were this is, no one knows about this, so this is the time that I'm establishing this truth. Has anything changed about that plan based off what's occurred recently, or
So it's been obviously really hectic. So obviously when I came on in that video, we talked about kind of what I planned to do after I graduated, and we talked about a few tips and tricks about Freshers Week and about a bit about our experience. But the whole aim for kind of leaving university and getting a job, which is such a big thing, I was kind of a bit unsure about what I wanted to do. Obviously, I just did economics, and I was saying about how I would like to go into drama school. So I went to loads of auditions. Obviously all the big ones like Lambda, Central, a few of them I got rejected, a few of the lower tier ones I got into, and then I got into one / maybe two decent ones, one called Aura and maybe Royal Central, to do a Masters in Acting. And I don't think I may have told you that, I may not have done. So that's kind of the development since I've been on on the show, or you came on and interviewed me. And obviously I was like, all right, cool. I finally got this kind of this master's set up. And then Corona obviously came. And the thing about drama school is it's all contact based. So I'm going to be touching, I'm going to be hugging. And as soon as Corona came with the kind of restrictions, it was like, damn, like this isn't good for drama school, especially. Do I now want to pay 15K for a master's when it might be done online?
Exactly.
So I'm 90% sure now that I'm going to go and do a master's. So that's the development. But there's still that 10% that, I don't know, like even at university, people are like, do I want to go to university if I can't, go clubbing or, and it's the same sort of thing with masters. But
I mean, this is all stuff that I'm going to be covering in this episode as well as later ones. And I think it's really interesting talking about as well the sort of the monetary value of a degree if there is a significant portion of it that now has to be made online. But in terms of the arts, which obviously predicates on physical contact and being somewhere in person, since coronavirus as well, the arts has taken like a massive hit, like in terms of funding and and with pubs being opted to be reopened first, and we've just had Super Saturday. Obviously, this podcast is going to be released. This podcast is going to be released quite a long ways down the line. But like, what is your like opinion on?
So the arts are an interesting one because I have so many friends that love going to the gym. I have so many friends that through my dad are actors and theatre like bugs. And you see all sorts of stuff like, how are they opening the red light district before theatre, or how are they opening the red light district before let's say gyms. And you know what, I go like, fair enough, that's a kind of valid point. But I think in this situation, wherever you look, you could always find a sort of hypocrisy in what they're doing because I mean, nobody knows what it is and nobody knows how to deal with it type of thing. And that's the thing, like with the arts, it's I don't know, it's like it is people's livelihoods, so they're gonna have to get back to it soon. But there's already been shows like in Broadway that have been cancelled till 2021, and it's like the people that do theatre, where do they go to now? And there's not going to be, let's say, there's even talk about drama being replaced by maths in schools to allow everyone to catch up. So the arts, I think, as you say, definitely took a big hit, and I kind of understand it. Like you can't have people sitting so close together and stuff like that and bustling past each other. But then again, it's where do you draw the line and just say, life's got to get back to normal? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
You're not expected to know the answer, but I've seen some hilarious stuff in the news lately about how like comparing the pub experience to sitting in a theatre, and it's like they flipped it on its head and they said, oh God, like, it's well known that theatres are such rowdy places and people get so drunk and can't sit still. And whenever and when they have to go to the toilet, they're not just urinating in corners of the room and stuff like that. It's like, when you look at it like that, you have to obviously take into account, that it is still a serious concern. But I mean, I think it is important to set a good precedent as well. And I'll bring this in more to university related as well very soon. But setting a good precedent, I feel like, is the way to go with a lot of things, like, providing like aid packages for the arts and things like that, which Scotland have just recently announced.
For sure.
How important do you feel that the arts is in terms of a university experience? Like, because you do YouTube, obviously, you're an actor, you've done modelling, and then your degree is economics. But you also take part in a lot of like these film productions with the TFTV, now called TFTI.
Wait, they changed the name to TFTV?
Yeah.
What?
It sounds like a sexual in disease, doesn't it?
Yeah. What does it stand for? Obviously, theatre, film, and television. Theatre,
film, and television, interactive media, but they cut off the M, I think. Someone might correct me with that if I've got it slightly wrong, but it's interactive.
I see.
Because the original title didn't include interactive media. So
no, of course,
they've changed it to be more inclusive, and we're all about being inclusive these days.
Of course we are, definitely. No, but I've done quite a few things. So on the modelling front, funny story. Basically, I got signed when I was younger. I was in a few magazines. That went to a few like catwalk auditions, that sort of stuff. And then I'm basically too small, so I've had to give up like doing anything.
You're too small.
Yeah. You realistically have to be 6'2", and I'm like 6. So I've literally just had to like been like, you know what, forget it.
You're tall. Are you not? You look taller than 6. Are you sure you're not like 6'1"?
Mate, they proper measure like with my hair. If I had a quiff and I had shoes on, I'd be like 6'2". But they like shoes off and they measure me head down, like flat down, like squash my head. I've been into like modeling agencies and they do this, and I'm 6. And I was like, you know what? Fair enough. I'll just give up with that. So
just making you feel terrible.
Yeah, I just
is
like,
that legit? Is that legit? What happens?
Yeah, man, like literally like so I remember a few times I went to these like catwalk auditions in London, and there's like a big like an empty big hall, and there's all these designers and all these brands sitting around on like tables like at Freshers Week. You know how everyone's kind of got their own table. Yeah. And you go in there and there's queues of about 50 guys, about 50 girls, just all in heels, and like you kind of do walks up and down, and then you do a circle as if you're going around these fresher stalls. And these guys are all like 6'4", like super chiseled guys. And then I obviously came in there, I was like 6 foot. I was like, this isn't for me. And
you feel a bit out of place. It's like it sounds like Devil Wears Prada. Like what is going on?
it's. I tell you what, it did build confidence massively, having to do it in front of all these people that have obviously had like loads of gigs and all these like I don't know people. But yeah, it's it was pretty interesting to say the least.
Yeah. But in terms of university and the arts, have you ever been to one of the Drama Sock productions?
Oh yeah. So in York, I actually did. I auditioned for a few in first term last year, my third year this year even, and I did Dracula. And obviously everyone knows the story of Dracula, the vampire, and it was actually like, it was really good. It's really nice for, let's say, that the people who I was in Dracula with, I probably never would have hung around with them or became friends with them if I wasn't, let's say, involved in Dracula. And I actually like really clicked with a few of them, really like nice people. And just kind of that community of, being at the same university, working towards the same play, seeing everyone weekly on a regular basis it was actually a really nice thing to do. Yeah. I wish I did it in first year and stuff. But.
See, we're gonna come on to like talking about suggestions for what first years could do, and it's going to be difficult, especially with this, because obviously there's going to be so many changes. But in terms of like the Drama Sock productions, like I come at it from the perspective of being an audience member, and like the first time I ever watched one, I was absolutely blown away by like the scope and the professionalism, and it was fantastic. It was so good. I don't think I watched Dracula, but it was such a good performance.
They take like Drama Sock as serious. Like any drama performance, like you got the director, the sound man, like the whole crew are there every single like rehearsal for months beforehand, and they don't mess around. They want everything to be perfect. It's like a competition really, because I guess everybody in Drama Sock would go to the play, and everybody wants to have the best play. So the quality, considering it's a student production at a university where everyone's doing it as a kind of hobby or outside their degree, is incredible, really. I think props to everybody in every show, really.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go to theatres that much. Like, I'm not a theatre person, but I could tell. Like, the most theatre I've ever got is Panto. Like Christmassy, that Christmas time where we have a great few theatre houses in Leeds, and some of the Panto productions, like that's as far as I get in terms
behind
of yeah, literally he's behind you.
yeah I mean, I love that
that's as far as I get. But like, even I could tell, like, I don't want to say it like I'm not someone to take advice from, but like even I could tell like it was a fantastically done, and it draws you in, and the audience is like, it felt like a proper theatre experience. And it's
and
to say that it's just that drama barn little
I was gonna say the drama barn's actually, it's got a real mood to it, which is really good. Small, all black, eerie, bit of smoke in there, it hovers around the room the whole time. And I think there's always that stigma like, it's a student production, it's not going to be that good. But the reality is that that stigma, it should be abolished, because it is, I mean, much better than just a typical student production.
Yeah I agree. And I think starting next year, freshers coming in, things like going to the drama barn and being able to watch these productions is probably not going to be something that's going to be available straight away. No. Which is a shame, because it's going to mean that a lot of societies that require in-person activities like that are not going to be able to function.
For sure.
I'm just hoping that there's going to be some sort of adaptation that takes place. I know personally, because I'm a part of Band Society, that we're going to be testing this thing where we are going to be developing this virtual software, a bit like Zoom, that allows us to do these like sort of live performances, but separately, and it has like zero latency, so that, because that's very important when it's music.
Yeah, everyone's synced up. Boom.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everyone's synced up.
they're going to design it from scratch themselves.
I've heard that. Yeah, it's going to be an
play to
intense
them.
project. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, you'd hope by then, let's say, hopefully, I know US cases are rising, but if there's more progress of the vaccine or more progress of treatment, they'll kind of relax certain things like that, so that, you know, maybe the bands could perform together and then that could be live streamed, and maybe just a smaller audience or whatever, but there's still that sort of live element, because I think that's what makes music great. Do you not think, like, everybody there live, rocking
Absolutely.
out, like festivals are great because you're there in the moment. That's what I think would be a shame with band talk, to lose that sort of in the
Definitely.
moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really missing being able to play live lately. Like, it's such a great experience, and it's not just great for the bands, it's great for like people turning up to the university for the first time.
Yeah, man.
And then having that like community experience. It's really good. So I mean, I'm personally going to be working hard to make sure that we can have some like as live as possible events, and then hopefully develop it out a bit more as we
And
can.
I think we should say to the freshers, right, if they're listening to this, and they're like, oh my God, what about my lectures? I can't sit next to anyone. Nobody turns up to lectures, really. So you could easily social distance in lectures, like 100%. You have 10 meters between every person in there, and you'd be fine. But it's just the societies, and I guess the kind of that going out, there's obviously the concern, and like stuff like band
it's a
talk.
big concern. But I'm gonna touch on some stuff about your experience in first year, and we'll talk about like perhaps things that maybe some of the new people could think about, and maybe try and ease some stresses as well, because I feel like a lot of first years this year are either going to be, it's going to be a few of different categories. They're either going to be put off completely from university because of like how restricted it's going to be. It's going to be restricted because of money problems, because the university doesn't have as much money, the student unions don't have as much money.
It's a big downward cycle if people don't go to university, in terms of like the future of kind of funding and facilities and all that sort of stuff with the university.
Yeah. So we'll get onto that later on, and it'll be a good conversation. But first, I wanted to just talk about a little bit, because these podcast episodes, as I've established them so far, are all in conversation with York YouTubers, and hopefully some more YouTubers that have gone on to do, and just like yourself, will, more things.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea.
Yeah, I know. I wonder who had that idea. What is that experience like of vlogging at university? Do you have a situation? Because I was speaking to, just a bit of a name drop, but I was speaking to this guy called Blanks. He's a YouTuber who makes music he's got like 1 million subscribers.
Banks, you know that guy? I've seen that guy. He does like remixes and parodies.
Yeah.
He's sick.
I spoke to him through radio, because the contacts you get through radio, mate.
Dope. That's dope. I've seen he went viral on some Facebook thing where he recreated some viral old school like groovy tune. I can't
he's
remember
awesome.
What it was.
He's awesome. He made this cool remix of Drake, and turned it to like a reggae tune, I think. And that was so good. But when I was talking to him, one of the things that he said is that he has in the past struggled with the idea of when he's out and about living his life and doing his thing, because he has that social media presence like you. I mean, obviously they're at two different levels.
He's much bigger than me, for reference. Yeah.
But the experience is similar, because you have audiences that sort of expect to see content about your life.
Yeah.
He said that he's experienced a situation where he's struggling to live in the moment, because he's thinking like, oh, should I be filming this? Or should I be taking a picture of this? Or should I be sharing this? Have you felt that you've been in that sort of situation whilst you've vlogged at uni?
No, that's the thing. Like, there's so many times when I'll be on a night out, or I'll be at pre's and having a good time, and everyone's laughing, cracking jokes. It's like, hey, Dylan, why didn't you vlog that? I'm like, yeah, nice one, mate. And it's kind of like, you know what? Like, it's kind of that stigma that every good moment should be vlogged. And for a while, I did kind of feel like that. But I think the thing that stopped me, and the thing that made me go, like, he can think that I'm not going to do it. I don't know. I never have an intention to do it. Is that as soon as I would bring my camera out to try and vlog a good moment, I'd feel this sort of pressure to then film everything. And as soon as I feel that pressure to film everything, it kind of made me just feel a bit awkward, and I wasn't enjoying the moment as much. And it just kind of, if I had my camera with me to try and film stuff, then I just didn't have a good time personally. Especially if I'm around my close friends that know me and they're all comfortable with camera, then it's a bit easier. But especially in an environment where it's like you don't maybe know everyone, you know how people are going to react, and then there's sort of thing like, that whole pressure of doing it. I definitely get what he's saying, and I just kind of got to the point where, to avoid feeling like, oh, should I be vlogging this or not? I just be like, you know what, sack it. I'm not going to vlog it. If I need to, I'll just whip out like my phone, let's say, and get a lower quality version of what's happening on my phone. And that's kind of a really kind of normalized way to do it. It doesn't attract a lot of an attention to have like a big camera. Your phone's just like normal. So
it is quite intimidating.
Yeah, exactly. And it is definitely. People, like, so many people I've like, oh, can I be in the vlog? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And they just don't say anything because they get like, I don't know, scared or whatever. So yeah, I think I know what he's saying, definitely.
Do you so it's sort of mentioning what you've just said at the end there, where people come up to you and ask to be in your vlogs and things.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that experience of being recognised, or would you rather make content? And I don't mean not have the audience, but like make content, because I feel like that might change for you a bit when you move home and you stay and you go to masters, because then you'll be in a situation again where perhaps people in that location won't be that aware of your YouTube channel. What are the two like?
I think, you know what, I think so when I was in year 13, I kind of finished my A-levels. I had like a bit of a following, not too big, and I would occasionally, I'd be in London, so I'd be like, I started stream vlogs. I'd be like, oh yeah, right, mate, like maybe 3 times a year. Once at Reading Festival at the front of this random mosh pit, I got recognised in year 13.
You got recognised in a mosh pit?
Yeah, it was like, bro, do you upload your A-level results? I was like, oh yeah, I did. And then once like at the pub, and it was like 3-4 times like in a few months, and it was like, you know, that was nice. And then obviously I went to university, same sort of thing. I wasn't too big in first year, but then by third year, obviously in second year when I went abroad, no one really knew me. Well, actually a few people did because they found my videos before, whatever, because I stayed at college. Yeah. But I think it was when I came back to York University in third year, I didn't really go out too much, but I didn't realize how much I'd actually get recognized, because obviously I make videos on York University. Everybody at York kind of watches them. And I must have, it was the Courtyard anniversary night. Was it?
I remember that because I was helping DJ.
Yeah, you was helping DJ, and I got there obviously, and this was the first time really. It was kind of more towards the start of the year when I realized how much like I actually got recognized. Like obviously, like me being recognized, and not like I'm a celeb or whatever.
It's more like VIP. You walk in, it's like VIP.
But it's more for like the memes, and it's like it's student vlogs. I'm like, oh yeah, like. Oh yeah.
We should have got you up at the DJ table and like got you to do a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, but you know what? No, like I think going back to the question, like when you get recognized a lot, it's kind of like people not heckling, but like if you walk past people and they're like staring at you, like, does he know my YouTube channel? Like, it just makes you feel a bit like oh. And then obviously if people ask for pictures, whatever, it's cool, but. Then again, I almost feel like, you know, I'm not really that big. I'm just a YouTuber type of thing. So I think I would rather be kind of recognized once or twice and not too much, because I do kind of like to just fit in and just have a normal time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like, you know, you want to know whether it's a genuine interaction and not just like someone coming up to just mess you about. In a sense.
Yeah.
And I think most people can understand that. And
I think like once or twice, it didn't really happen too much, but like I walk past a group of boys and they'll be like trying to be funny, like, "Oh, student vlogs," and I'm like, "Hey, nice one, boys," or whatever. But it's kind of like I'm just not here for it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But I mean, that's overall, I can't complain. It was great. I'd much rather, you know, most people, and 99% of people are really friendly and nice to me, so it's all good.
That's what we like to hear. But I want to move on and talk about the fact that you've recently graduated. For those who follow your YouTube channel, you posted, I mean, it is a bit of a cliche, but you've posted reacting to your results.
Live reaction, I'm angry. Yeah.
Which I've watched by this point. And it was a good video. I enjoyed it.
Cheers.
But I wanted to talk about, like, maybe you can now, you know, I mean, it's not your responsibility to do this, but like you are part of a cohort of people who've recently graduated, and what was it a massive anticlimax for 3 years of university to then suddenly miss out that last term where a proper graduation ceremony happens? And isn't there some Google Doc for York University going around about picking the music for,
yes, oh God, yes,
for the graduation?
Yeah. Here we go on this. The graduation, first up, the graduation music choice, right? They sent us this thing and we're like, oh, can you give us some suggestions? So obviously people have sent in some suggestions, and the songs they shortlisted were awful. I mean, I can't remember. The only one I remember off the top of my head was We're All in This Together, High School Musical cast. I think
maybe it should be High Hopes. High Hopes.
Yeah, and but the thing is, I think people have just memed it and just gone for like cliche songs like that. But so that's the song choice situation. what a time! And then
I think it's funny that they've maybe tried to ease people's concerns, or maybe try and ease people's expectations by saying, okay, look, you can't have a graduation in person, but we'll push it back till maybe like the end of the year or whenever it's going to be in person. But for now, here's songs that you can pick.
Literally, man, literally. It's good. I mean, it's a good crack. I don't know how many people are going to go to the online graduation ceremony, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess. And that's the thing. Like, they're trying their best. It's not their fault. But in terms of the anticlimax, like, quite frankly, big time. Like, it was a big anticlimax. I mean, I remember when I finished my last ever university exam. Me and my mates were just on Zoom and we're like, calm, we've done it, but we'd love to be together and celebrate together. Like, boys, this is it. Like, we're not going to see each other again that much, really. There's so many people who I've been friends with and who I've like really clicked with, who I'm just not going to. The reality is we live in different parts of the country. Maybe one or two I'll stay close friends with, but you're not really going to see them again. And that's where you really kind of want to have that one final, week to remember the people as well as the kind of experience we never got to have. So it was a bit of a shame, but it's easier to miss something you never had. So
yeah. And I mean, you mentioned it briefly, but you've been like trying to offset that disappointment about not being able to graduate with your friends by doing like Zoom chats and things. And I mean, it is a small, improvement on the situation, because you can do things like Zoom quizzes and things like that. And I've done a few of those with friends, and we've done some few cringy, like we did a Zoom FTP awards. So it was like an unofficial award ceremony with like all our own awards categories and things.
Did you get suited and booted?
Yeah, I put on a blazer. Right. I put on a blazer, and I look sharp, and
I love that.
It was a lot of fun, and it was stuff like that that sort of like it eases the grievances of like having to graduate without So I wanted to also talk about the announcement of the safety net that arrived at the University of York. You made a YouTube video about the safety nets and implementing them, and your hopes for implementing them. What was your initial reaction when you saw that it was announced that it was going to be implemented? Yeah,
obviously I was like, thank goodness me, because I think personally, under normal exams, I would be struggling to get a 2-1. And when they announced that, they're going to have a safety net, I was like, damn, that's in the bag, that as long as I pass, which I should, I'll get a 2-1, which is really kind of good. And I think given like every other university they did it, York had to do it. But I mean, listen, I'm eternally grateful. But I'd be if I was like just graduated, and I would be a bit like, oh man, like I missed out on a safety net.
Yeah, definitely. From my perspective, the safety net was a bit of a shock, because it was like we got told that they were going to be taking it from our first year grades, and for me personally, it was like the classic thing about uni is first year doesn't count. So to then go into second year and then be told that they're basing your safety net grade on your first year performance, was a bit like, oh my god, like
I'd be like,
how does this happen?
I guess that's the thing, though. At least it's only a safety net, like. But that's kicking yourself for not trying harder.
Yeah. I mean, I was very thankful in the sense that I hadn't properly slacked off, and that I had built a decent, groundwork for my second year. So I did have a pretty decent safety net to fall back on. But there was a fair few people, and I mean, I can imagine that the stress was real, that their safety net was lower than they'd liked. But I do know that they still benefited from it, because some of the average grade, or not the average grade, but some of the worst ones I heard from some of the second year results was like mid 40s and 50s for some
This year?
people's. Yeah. So their
That's
safety net like properly pulled them up.
Yeah, for sure, man. But was that, speaking of the safety net type of thing, like literally what you said about, in first year I got told it doesn't count, I didn't try hard, and then all of a sudden my safety net's like low. Imagine like A-level students, right? Their mock grades are their final A-level grades. Bro, who tries a mocks realistically? Everyone's like, oh, just, wait for the exam and bang it out. That is
categorically, nearly everyone who went through A-levels, your actual results were way better than your mocks.
Yeah,
like
every time.
Because the teachers, like, this is what I found, is the teachers don't want to give you too high a mock, a mock result, because that's what you're sending to universities at the end of the day, saying, this is what I'm going to get. And it almost always comes out on top. So if then those are the grades that you were getting.
Yeah, exactly. It just made me think of that situation, but for A-level students, it's almost worse.
I know. It's shocking. I personally was in that exact same position of coming out of A-levels with better results than the mocks would have suggested I got. Hence why I was able to go to the Uni of York. But do you think, before we move on, do you think that's going to be a significant impactor on the level of students that end up coming to the Uni of York if those mock results are what the university perhaps takes on board? Or do you think, on the flip side, the university might say, okay, well, bearing in mind that this is what's happening, we'll lower the grade boundaries?
Yeah, York's a Russell Group uni. I feel like if they're struggling to get students, they'll accept like all the lower tier students. They'll come flooding in. York has enough students, and then it'll be universities like, I don't know, Lincolnshire or Coventry that, let's say, struggle with getting students because all of their normal clientele will be up like at York University because they're accepting everybody else to fill up the spaces because nobody's got as good a grades type of thing. So
you used a particular word there that I find really interesting, but it is kind of true in a sense, because on a very, very basic level, students are like clients for the university.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Because it is a lot of money, and it's it's an investment as well with the student loan sort of thing. I like to see it as an investment. I think if you have a forward-thinking attitude, going to uni should be seen as an investment rather than a creation of debt, which it is a bit of both. But I want to segue on to now talking a bit about mental health, because on a human level, university can represent a massive change in an individual's life, of course, and it's going to be even more fraught with confusions and anxieties coming into this next year for freshers. I was thinking about this for a while, actually, because I was thinking about how to tackle it and how to come at it, because the excitement about starting university I'm interested to see how you think, it can sort of stem from like a few pretty socially ingrained avenues. So I've tried to identify what I feel like are the main few. So my first one was social pressure, because I feel like for those people who want to put off going to work at the age of 18 and perhaps maybe don't have a massive idea about what they want to do, might choose university as that, like, I'll put it off for 3 years. It's a bit of time to think about what I want to do. And I feel like that might become even more obvious in this next year. Another thing, and the second option that I had was people who go to university, they've got a set plan, they've had that plan, they know what they want to do, they're going to uni, they're going to do a specific degree that they love. And for them, it's great. Like, the university experience is exactly where they want to be. And because of that, a lot of the times, those people don't tend to suffer a lot of, issues and anxieties. I mean, it's unique for everyone across the board, but like, if you go to university with that plan of this is where you are, this is where you want to be, then you're less likely to have a serious flare-up of issues. And then the third which is the sort of person who perhaps sees this as the next step, in the sense that it's, they're not entirely sure what they want to do, but they hope at the end they'll perhaps figure it out. And I mean, I just wondered what you thought of that, like whether that's anything that you've resonated with or whether you've seen stuff like that.
Yeah, I think reason number one about you just don't know what to do, you don't want to go into work, so you go to university. And I think that's the main reason why I went to university, to kind of, to explore, learn, have a good time, meet people. And I feel like you see so many like movies and so many like people always who have been to university talk about how amazing it was. And for me, I never ever went for the degree. I just went for the experience. And I know like most of my friends as well, I don't know anyone who really went to university knowing I want to be, let's say, a historian. I'm going to do history. This is my life plan. Like, I don't actually know anyone who did that. Everyone kind of went like, you know what? I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know what I want to do. Seems good in movies. Let's go to university type of thing. It's kind of like that spontaneous attitude that I think made me want to go. And I know my friends around me made them want to go.
Yeah.
What about you? Are you the same or?
Yeah, there's definitely an element of that, like cultural and social pressure, but like in terms of whether I just went to university to put off going to work, yes, definitely. I, even to the extent of that, wish that I could have at least one more year at uni. Like I really want.
That's why everyone's doing a master's, because I know so many people that's like, I'm not ready for work. Let's just do a master's.
No,
like,
I know.
Why not? YOLO.
The thought, I mean, I don't know if I'm being completely serious, but the thought came across my mind about applying to go and work in the students' union because I was like...
May as well. That's good money and an easy, like, the area.
I was just like, oh my God, it's got to be something. Like, I love York, and there's no such thing as a 4-year degree with my course. So
yeah, would you run for a president or vice president?
Oh, no. I literally didn't put as much thought into it as that, but it was like something to keep me at uni. But like, I worry about the people who go to university simply because of social pressure. And they don't need to be worried for, but I worry for them anyway. Because it is a very exposing environment, there's no quote unquote in some situations, like for the vast majority of the time you are there without the your parents, and you are sort of left in to do what you can in independence, and that comes with like learning to cook and managing drinking and staying healthy, and those are topics that I want to cover in this podcast as well. I would thought I'd share my personal experience of that first few weeks.
Go for it. First few weeks at university and how it kind of was.
First few weeks of university, because my experience wasn't the best, and I feel like it might resonate with some other people who maybe went through that similar experience. But I mean, I'm gonna take it from the opportunity of hindsight and give some context.
I'm interested to hear this now. All in Liam's first few weeks at university at York. Let's go.
It's this could have been like 2 weeks of vlog content.
Hey, literally.
But no, so like the first day, like obviously moving in is a very surreal experience. Like I genuinely felt like I was in a film, because you build it up. Like, so when you get your results at A-level, you sort of build it up in your head for like a month and a half, and you're counting down that day when you move in, and it's like when it came, it was just like it's so intense. You are sort of swept into that experience of, right, here's your key, here's your room, this is your flatmates. You've been speaking them obviously on Snapchat and stuff in the group chats leading up to it, but it's not really the same as like being thrust together with a group that you've never really met for a week. And yeah, so I was very nervous about getting started, but obviously really excited as well, because this is where I wanted to be. Like, I was there to have fun and really see what I could make of it. But it was just very nerve-wracking, and I remember specifically that first day, I got there really early, because obviously you want to move in, and I just completely lost my appetite for lunch as well. Like, I couldn't eat because I was just so nervous. And sometimes that happens with me, and it does flare up a bit later in this story. But my sticks were really great, like overall. A bit, like lads, sort of thing.
And a stick, for reference, is somebody who, let's say, when you go to university, they're in the year above you, they stayed in a similar like college to you or the same college, and they kind of guide you around university for them first few 2 weeks or whatever, and kind of show you the ropes, show you how to get to town, etc., etc.
Yeah, they're very useful. Some do it better than others. I think we can agree.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of context actually. I'm a head stick for this year.
How are you?
Yeah, I
I was
applied.
I was last year.
Were you?
Well, the year just gone technically. Yeah.
Oh dear, why are we mirroring each other so well? I don't understand. But yeah, so I've applied to be a head stick, which I'm excited about because I feel like with this podcast as well, like I want to give back with my experiences and see if I can help because I feel like I'm in a unique position to do that. So yeah, the sticks, they're, by and large, they're really great people, but because I wasn't really that aware of what I was like drinking, because I hadn't really probably drank to that point, a few here and there, but never like properly going for it, like I've done for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a concoction to go wrong in my case, because like these sticks were really like that freshers culture is drink and go out and don't sleep and you eat badly. And the one thing that stuck out in my head though wasn't specifically to do with me. It was the sort of toxic culture that seems to center around drinking, because there was this one girl, I'm not going to name her, but there was this one girl who didn't want to drink and she didn't have any interest in drinking. And from my perspective, and I had a conversation with her months later, that she pretty much got excluded from everything that we were doing. Not intentionally, but it was like everyone's there for that first week to just drink and bond that way. And the sticks themselves didn't seem to be too keen about going out of their way to take them to non-drinking events and things like that. And if I can imagine if I was in that position of not wanting to drink and you're in a position where you're isolated because you don't know these people and they're all drinking and you're not comfortable about drinking,
Tough.
I can imagine that's a really isolating first introduction to university because you've had, I mean, I don't know the real details about whether she spoke to someone beforehand and said that she didn't really like to drink and that sort of thing. But I mean, assuming someone would do that and then to turn up and be in that situation where they get excluded to that extent, it was not a great first impression.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I've been to prees, and I'll be on a non-drinking night out. Let's say with not even at university with people who I know, and if you're the only one not drinking at a prees, regardless if you know them or not, you're on a different level to them, and you kind of just don't have anything to do. You just kind of chill there. You don't get the banter. You don't get the jokes. You're not included. So I can't imagine. When you don't know anybody, it's even worse. 100%.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely still a social stigma around refusing to get involved with drinking, and a social stigma around people who don't want to drink, and then the immediate reaction is, oh, they don't know how to have fun, or they must be really boring. And it's like I personally do drink, and when I drink, I drink. But like I'm completely able to have a good time when I don't drink. Like it's not a requirement of having fun to have to drink.
For sure.
And it was a bit shocking to see that out of like the 14 people there in the flat, because it's 12 including the two sticks, the one person who didn't want to drink then was pretty much excluded, not outrightly of course, but the definite undertones of they clearly don't want to drink, so therefore they don't really have fun.
Yeah, and let me ask you this actually. So obviously I remember you mentioned this in the brief, and I was thinking about it, and I kind of came to the idea, like I totally agree about her being excluded, whatever. But do you reckon there could ever be scope, right, for a potential, let's say, accommodation block, let's say James College, like one of the blocks being the non-drinking block? Now, I know instantly they would get labelled as the boring block, of course, but for them internally, in Freshers Week, let's say, or throughout the year, they might be like more connected and together, and they could do other stuff together, opposed to the drinking and the clubbing, let's say. Is that, I can't make up in my mind if that's actually a good idea or not. So I'd love to hear
I think in an ideal world, yes.
Yeah.
It would be a case of that would obviously work for them individuals. But yeah, it would be a case of you wouldn't want it to be something, because you still have to obviously deal with the fact that there is a social stigma around not drinking. So you maybe just make it an option. I think it is an option. You can say that you don't want to
on your form.
drink.
Or even when you sign up, you're like, I like sports, I don't like drinking, or I do like drinking type of thing.
Yeah. But I'm not specifically sure how much that actually does in terms of your actual experience of freshers signing that you don't really drink. I think it may encourage like the head sticks or something to maybe find you and take you to like a movie night or something. But there is still a massive emphasis on drinking culture, which kind of makes me excited about this next Freshers Week, because it's and unfortunately it's a bit of a double-sided sort of
clubs won't be open.
Yeah, there's going to be less emphasis on being able to go to clubs, so it may have the opposite effect of encouraging unis to put on better student nights and still drinking, but better student nights and different events and more imaginative freshers events, instead of just solely relying on going to clubs and just drinking.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, that's what I think about it. And I mean, I'm hoping to have an influence on that as a head stick and try and find people who don't drink, because as a head stick, I'm not supposed to be drinking. I think you get like one night off.
And I remember, so as a head stick, I think, you have a few beers, but you're not allowed to get like super drunk or whatever. And I remember when I was doing it this year, I was with it was 2 head sticks for the whole N block. We kind of went round, and it was like, obviously we'll let them bond with their sticks, whatever. But if they're not drinking, how else can you kind of encourage them to engage and encourage them to kind of bond or whatever as a head stick, versus like let the sticks kind of mingle with them as well? But there's almost like you have no common ground with these new people. So it's like, if they're not drinking, how can you help the situation? You could try and offer a few games, like we tried to play Never Have I Ever, Never Have I Ever, and the people that were drinking were obviously like, yeah, like fucking like never have I ever done this or that. And then the people that were obviously sober were like, oh, I don't want to play this game. And it's like, what else could we do? And we kind of just kind of draw a blank to kind of bridge the gap between the people on this level and the people on that level. And it was so kind of hard to do. And it was like, well, yeah, how do we do that?
Is there any advice that you give to me, seeing as though I'm going to be going into that experience, or any sticks as well that you'd maybe think, tone it down a bit or try this approach? Or is there any advice that you give to me going into doing this head stick?
You know what, I'll be honest, me and my head stick who were together, we kind of felt a bit useless, like, because we're not a stick, we're not spending the whole time with, let's say, one flat, we're not getting to know any of the new students to help them on that sort of level. We're just kind of walking around block to block to block, and it almost kind of felt like when we went round as a head stick, we was kind of intruding on the bonding time between the sticks and the flats, or the whole flat in general, like the authorities here type of thing, like, you know what I mean? But
I felt that as well during my freshers when the head sticks turned up to the flat. It was kind of like that feeling of, oh no, like here we are, the people who want to kill the fun.
Yeah. So like, I don't know what advice I give. I mean, I think, just I did try and have a chat with quite a few of the people that, let's say, in the corner on their own or whatever, where you from, how you doing, like that sort of thing. And then I think I took one girl to A&E because I don't know what happened. She just fell and hit her head outside Cuda. But man, advice, I reckon you're going to be the man, Liam. You're the man for change. You got it.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, my aim is to set up some great like events with the societies that I'm involved in, and then hopefully use my role as a head stick to encourage people who want to do something different to come and try out these events that are on. That's my first thought in my head. But
yeah, man, definitely.
We'll see if that works, I suppose. But yeah, I want to get back to the freshers story and my first few weeks. And in terms of, it's going to get a bit real. So bear with yourself. So one of the hardest parts, one of the things that I absolutely hated about Freshers Week was waking up every morning feeling anxious because I was so out of my comfort zone. Like I fully, encourage people to get out of their comfort zone and to try new things. But starting university was the most intense thing I think I've ever done in my life. And it was awful for 2 weeks. I think every morning I'd just wake up feeling anxious, and it was not pleasant. And it made me think recently when I was writing this podcast and things we could talk about, that it is incredibly easy at university to get lost in the system, in a sense. Like, I personally didn't. Like, it wasn't debilitating. But there was a few people that I knew that sort of isolated themselves in their rooms and maybe only came out to have like lunch or breakfast or whatever. And it seems like a place where you can get lost quite easily. And I think that has come out, you know, in terrible situations that have happened in universities across the country. But yeah, it can feel like it's an isolating situation, and there are obviously lots of ways to help with that, which I'm going to cover at the end of the story. So it's not all doom and gloom. But there are definitely lots of things that you can do to help. But yeah, that was definitely the hardest part, was the anxiety.
Yeah, and I think it's quite easy as well, like you say, to build up a kind of cycle of anxiety where, let's say you don't make any friends on the first night, then you then go to breakfast. Oh, I don't know anyone. I'm just gonna get a takeaway breakfast, go back to my room, eat it there. Then the next night comes. Oh, you don't know anyone, and everyone's in the kitchen having a good time, but I don't know them yet because I didn't meet them last night. I'll just go back to my room tonight. And then you kind of do the cycle where you don't really meet anyone, and essentially, yeah, you end up in a situation where you wake up, you're alone, you go get breakfast, get a takeaway, you're alone. And listen, it's a very rare situation, but you can see how some people do fall into that trap, and how some people really do kind of develop that not so nicer experience. So yeah, I can see how that. I don't know anyone personally that's happened to personally, but I've heard of like stories like it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there like the hardest part as well that went along with that. I mean, there's only so many things that can go wrong, I suppose, but the hardest part as well that went along with that was the eating. Like, I didn't think it was such a big issue, but when I came to university, I discovered that I found it very difficult to keep food down, if you know what I mean, because the anxiety was making it so that it was challenging to not be nervous going to these, like, because you had the college meals and things, sitting in a public space eating. It was very difficult.
So you're saying like you would just feel like the nerves, and your food wouldn't settle, and then you didn't want to eat in let's say the dining hall in case you were in case you were sick, type of thing. Or
it wasn't. It's exactly that. It was a case of not wanting people to see that was going on as well, because obviously I was very concerned that I wanted to make friends, and in my mind it was like, if people see that, you know, they might be like, oh no, I don't really want to speak to him, or I don't really want to know him.
Well, it
was a difficult situation.
Yeah, like I understand what you're saying, because I'm not on the socially. I wouldn't get like, let's say my food wouldn't settle due to social circumstances, but if I'm having an argument with someone, or let's say I'm in a sort of conflict, or before a sports event, if I have to eat food, I know like straight away there's no way that's going to settle my stomach, so I'd literally just avoid eating. Yeah. And it's like, I guess that same sort of thing where if for you, for example, where with the socially kind of just feeling like your stomach's not having the food, then it's a hard kind of thing to deal with, especially when I don't know, everybody goes to food at the same time and you need food.
Yeah, it's challenging, but obviously it's not a big issue that affects me now, because I've obviously, through the last 2 years of uni, I managed to figure out ways of, in my opinion, that work for me to help deal with it. I feel like I'm on top of it more than I ever have been. And I'm excited to share some of those things. And I mean, some of them are things that you would, of course, just go, oh, yeah, that's obvious. But some of them, you know, aren't as obvious, and I think have really, really helped me personally. And I think it's healthy to recognize that it wasn't perhaps the healthiest way to start uni, combining those like challenging situations of like eating and keeping healthy, with the drinking culture, and, you know, losing sleep, and you know, you end up getting into a cycle that's not healthy, and I think it's important to, you know, realize that and think about ways of helping yourself. But of course, Freshers Week at the end of the day is there to have a good time, and I did enjoy it in a sense. I did enjoy it. Would I want to go back and repeat it? No. But I did enjoy it.
And like touching on Freshers Week, like you say, like I feel like the problem really with it all kind of stems from the background of people. So let's say for me, my group, my school were like, everyone was on drinking from quite early. I went on a lads holiday, which is basically 7 days of Freshers Week, but a bit more intense. And then
I did the exact same.
Yeah, the same. And obviously I changed sixth form. So I kind of went to university Freshers Week feeling like, oh, I'm Billy, like big boy here, going to love it. I know how to meet people from sixth form. I know how to drink, have a good time. And then you'd have my flatmates, let's say some of them similar level, some of them not at all, haven't really been out of their secondary school bubble. They don't do sport. They don't kind of meet people that way, or they don't drink. And it's such a difference between personalities and difference between what they've done in the past that can really make Freshers Week kind of, like, for some people not good. And I think that's part of the issue surrounding it. I don't know how you solve it, but I feel like, yeah, that's where it kind of...
I'm gonna attempt to provide some of the methods that I've found personally helpful, especially in the last 2 years, and it's a range of different things, and a lot of people going to university this year are probably going to be concerned about losing that uni experience, and making friends is always an important issue that everyone thinks about, and practices that can hopefully provide someone, if someone's had a similar experience, that they can think that it's not just an isolated issue, that it is quite a common thing, and a few things, right? So the first one that I found was exercise. Like, exercise is a huge one for me. It always has been. I'm going to quote a guy that I have huge respect for, and it's a guy called Eddie Hall. Now, Eddie Hall, I've tried to get him to come on this podcast, but because I have a huge respect for the guy, and my dad knows the co-director of Giants Live, which is the
World Strongman.
Yeah, it's one of the big strongman competitions, and that guy knows Eddie Hall quite a lot. But Eddie, in his younger years, suffered a lot with mental health after his nan died, and he was able to do a bit of sort of improvement, or like I don't want to say medication, but like
meditation.
Yeah, sort of like that, through the sport that he was doing. So in his case, it was swimming, and then it turned into weightlifting.
My guy Eddie Hall started off as a swimmer.
Yeah, he's an Olympic swimmer.
Eddie Hall, like a strongman Eddie Hall.
Yeah, he was one of the greatest swimmers in England, I'm pretty sure, when he was 19, I think.
That
18,
is mad.
19. Yeah, Eddie Hall started as a swimmer, and when his nan died, it's a real difficult situation, because obviously he was very close to his nan, and when she died, he made a promise that he would one day win World's Strongest Man, and spent every day for the following, I don't know how long it was, I think it was something like 15 years, training to become World's Strongest Man. But the main aim of that story is that exercise is an intrinsic and real, positive influence on a person's mental health. Having access to sport, whether it's running, whether it's, just going to the gym and going on the rowing machines, or whether it's just lifting weights, whether it's heavy weights like Eddie was, or whether it's just small weights, doing whatever you can. And I mean, I know, Dylan, you've been jogging and things during lockdown and things, but I think it's really important to create a routine through exercise, because exercise can be a great, baseline to build a routine from.
What are you doing, like, stuff right now? Let's say, what sports or running are you?
So I've set up you can buy these devices that connect to a bicycle, that basically allow you to cycle in a fixed position.
I see. Yeah. I've seen them.
So that's what I've got in the garage, and I have these really terrible dumbbells that they're so light. Because I'm so edge. But they're not very good. But I mean, the main point is exercise is just such a great way of keeping your mental health up, and I think it's important to focus on when you go to uni, because that's personally something that I found that immediately really helped, because it started a routine and it created that that positive release of energy and emotion and and I think it's really important, and it's difficult for a lot of people, obviously, at the moment, with gyms being shut and things like that. But hopefully, when this podcast comes out, things will be opening a bit more.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to cover that I think is really important is
I agree with that though. Sport is key.
Absolutely
Key.
Yeah, I mean, you're a big sports advocate yourself, so I can understand that you'd be in approval of that. Another thing that I think is really key is societies. Because, like, as you say, when you arrive at university, it can be a bit of a leap to attend a society or to attend one of those initial meetings. But you've got to remember, like, everyone else is in the same boat, and those people that are there running the societies are really keen to get new people involved. And they're from my experience, they're really lovely people. And I mean, you've experienced that with doing the drama productions and working with TATV and stuff like that with the film productions. And for me personally, it was URY and BandSoc. University was one of the first times that I performed music in person live. It was one of the most amazing moments that I've ever experienced.
Can we get a recording playing of it right now in the podcast?
Yeah, we got that dynamic levels going on in this podcast. But yeah, URY and BandSoc, some of my best friends at university have come from being a part of those societies. And I think if you want to make the most of what is already going to be a difficult uni experience for the first year anyway, joining university, societies is the way to find friends, find solid friends that you'll keep for the entire 3 years, and have some amazing experiences. I mean, personally, I will always advocate URY, University Radio York, for people who don't realise, because just the breadth of experiences that I've had through that society is insane. And it's £7 for a membership, and the value for money is off the charts. Like,
incredible.
I've met a lot of people that I would never have met, and done a lot of things that I would have never have done if I hadn't have been a part of URY. So it doesn't matter what society it is, and I'm going to be talking to a wide range of people on this podcast who are a part of a wide range of societies and groups, from like Christian society to, you know, the sustainability and veganism, and I've got loads of people, and you yourself with the acting and the sport and things. But without a doubt, societies is another just huge part of the uni experience, and it's so good for.
And I think, you know, you say about like society, the breadth of them, and like, let's say some people kind of think the idea of societies is that you have to play a sport, you have to do something like that, you have to be, you know, into radio, or you have to be a good presenter to join a society. But societies are literally anything. Like hummus society, you just go there, you try hummus. There's obviously gaming societies. Like, it's just, societies are literally any and everything, for the record, and that.
It's so good, yeah. I mean, I never did a sport at university. I still haven't done one, but all my societies and all my like passions are to do with like radio and performing music. And I mean, I love sport. I still love sport because I go to the gym. But yeah, definitely from my personal perspective, societies like URY, BandSoc, Hummus Society, one of the most out there. I thought it would be out there, but it was actually one of the best societies I've ever been to, and it's just a proper novelty, but it's dog petting society. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's really therapeutic, isn't it, as well? Like, boost your mental health, everything.
It's so good. If you were to do one society, I mean, it's a drop-in session, so you can go like once or twice a week. But if you were to do one society just to test it out, Dog Society, definitely, it's amazing.
Big plug there, big plug.
Big plug. But yeah, again, I'm going to try and get some of these sort of the representatives from these societies on this podcast, because I think that would be good to talk about, like, to talk to these people who run these societies and get them on and to really sell it. But yeah, I mean, my personal advocates are URY, BandSoc, and then that little cheeky one at the end of Dog Society.
Yeah, gotta be done.
It's a great one. And then another one we've spoken about in the past is eating well. My personal experience was I was a terrible cook. Absolutely terrible. Turned up at university, and I don't know why, but I seem to have been put in a flat where everyone was a Michelin star cook. And there I was with my frozen ready meals. I was still doing it for like 2 or 3 weeks. I fully had to learn how to cook. Like, it wasn't a joke. Like, I could maybe cook like one meal. I'm not sure what your experience was.
Was you not catered for first year? Or
nope.
Oh, see, I made the smart decision. I knew I couldn't cook, so I went semi-catered, which basically meant that I had to make my lunch each day, and at the weekends I had to cook. But I decided to pay to have dinners in the weekdays and breakfast in the weekdays, so I was saved. But I'm very much similar to you. I can cook now a decent spag bowl, anything with pasta on it, chicken, beans, pasta, and then maybe some sausage and tomato, but very limited, very limited.
Yeah. I feel like that's where we might diverge, because obviously I wasn't catered. So before I go into any more detail, do you think it's better to be catered or to get thrown into that like realm of unknown and have to cook your own food for all meals of the day? Do you think? I mean, do you think it's important? Do you think it matters? Do you think?
Well, I'm firstly, I say I'm lazy. So straight away, regardless of anything, I would just choose to be catered if I could the whole time. But I think being catered was quite good for meeting people as well, because when you went to the dining hall, you'd see a table of people, there might be a seat free, you go and sit with them, and they wouldn't necessarily be in your block, so you kind of meet people that way. So I thought it was good for that. And then just having the variation of when you wake up, you don't have to I don't know, or when you kind of wake up, you don't have to cook a big dinner for yourself. You can get all the nutrients without a big struggle. So I personally I quite like it, but.
I can understand that. My experience was I couldn't cook, and I felt terrible that everyone else could cook. And it took me the first time I ever cooked chicken. it was completely raw in the middle. I didn't have a clue.
Was it red? Doing. Did you eat it red?
No, I didn't eat it. You're not supposed. Clarification for the podcast: do not eat raw chicken.
Legit. So wait, you went to university. You knew you couldn't cook, but you thought uncatered would be a good option.
Oh yes, that makes so much sense, doesn't it?
No, also the plan was to kind of learn during summer, and then you just never did.
Yeah. I mean, I learnt one meal, and it's the classic student meal of spag bolognese. So
yeah, mate, but a good spag bowl that you can get through a good few days on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But my culinary journey has exploded since learning to cook and trying new things. And honestly, I love cooking now. It's one of it's one of my most satisfying pastimes. And I haven't done it much since being home, because that's very much my mother's domain. Not that it's any sort of like stereotype or cliche, but she makes some amazing meals and she enjoys it. So
do you reckon you would have been as good a cook if you was catered in first year?
No.
But getting thrown into it just made you learn, have to do it, and you're like, you know what, I enjoy it. Let's do it. Let's do more cooking.
I mean, I am always an advocate now more than I was then of chucking yourself into situations that test you. I like this phrase called seek discomfort. I stole that from I think they're actually called Seek Discomfort. It's a YouTube channel. It's a group of guys who do loads of crazy stuff. But yeah, their motto is seek discomfort, and it's basically like putting yourself in these situations to get the maximum growth you can get out of yourself, and learn some great skills. And cooking was one of those ones that I just really loved. But I guess what I want to say is, with the eating well, is it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be an amazing cook to eat well. There are so many easy tutorials on YouTube. I think YouTube and Google are some of the best resources to use whilst starting out at university, because they can suggest some really easy, healthy meals. I'm going to be talking to a great girl who throughout her entire first year was a vegan, and she's going to have some great tips in a future episode about how to eat healthy and also be ethical and sustainable. But if you aren't a vegan, there are loads of tips online about simple meals and easy nutrition, and I think that's really important as well. It's another base to start off having a good meal regime and eating well. So yeah, and that comes on to another bit about drinking sensibly, because I've seen a lot of people. There was one particular story from Langwith about this guy who, it was in first year, and he had a really bad drinking problem to the point where he basically was a raging drunk, and he ended up getting kicked out of university because he was attacking his flatmates whilst he was drinking, and he was drinking a lot. And it can be, university can be that place that encourages almost drinking habits. So I think it's it's not something that you need to be necessarily massively obsessive over. That's not what I'm advocating at all. But definitely being aware that, if you're drinking like every night of the week and it's halfway through your second year, you should probably be be thinking about whether that's the right thing to do.
And I think you have to drink for the right reasons, okay? So, like, let's say with this guy here, if he's like a casual, like, Sunday night, no one's going out, but for some reason he's cracking over, like, 4 or 5 Stellas in his room or whatever, and then becoming, like, a raging, like, angry drunk. It's kind of like you have to make sure you find the right balance at university where you drink socially, but then do you really need to have 4 or 5 beers in your room when you're going to have 4 or 5 tomorrow when you go out, etc., etc.? Like, is that the right balance, would you say, as well?
Yeah, definitely. Another important one is taking the time out to meet with friends. I think once you have that sort of group that you're confident with, whether that's come from societies, whether that's come from your flat, whether that's come from doing a sport, I think it's important to take time away from doing uni work and to spend time meeting people and going places, going into York and exploring. Because at the beginning, in freshers, it seems like a boring thing to do, to go into York, because I remember the picture that we took in our first week in front of the Minster, and we're all just stood in a line just looking depressed because all we want to do is just get back to the flat and start drinking and go clubbing. But part of the whole shtick is like you go to town and you get the tour or whatever. But like there is nothing better than on a great weather day going out with a group of mates into York, going shopping, whatever, for food, sitting in a park or whatever, playing football. And I think that's an important thing to remember to do. And on East Campus as well, there's loads of those little barbecues. And if you phoned up security or something or asked one of your college tutors, you could probably be able to set up a little barbecue. And I mean, it's just thinking outside the box and doing things with your friends while you're at uni. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and in first year you have time to do it, so make the most of it for sure.
Exactly. So if you are on East Campus and you're in accommodation, maybe look into having a little barbecue. I know some of me and my friends
West,
did it.
West as well have like these barbecues type, are very old but still barbecues.
Hopefully not covered in asbestos. We don't not.
Derwent, mate. And,
I know. I'm speaking to someone from Derwent, so I'm going to be asking all sorts of things. Yeah. We've got a few more now. It's not too many left. Another thing that I think is really important is breathing exercises. So we're sort of coming down to more like specific management techniques. Breathing exercises I think is really important because you're presented with a lot of situations where you're in difficult emotional and physical situations, whether that be meeting new people for the first time, taking that step to go to a society for the first time, because not everyone's going to want to go there by themselves, but if you did, you might surprise yourself. And breathing exercises can be really useful to just calm yourself, regain composure, regain control. It's helped me personally, and it just settles you and gets you ready for the moment, I think. Sure. I think it's a thing that's overlooked sometimes about, relaxing and not getting too overworked. And I think that'll be something that a lot of people overlook, and I think it's something that people should take on board more often and pay attention to how their body's reacting to a certain situation. And then only 2 left. We've rattled through them, which is good. And it's learning new skills and not being afraid to, step out of your comfort zone. So my personal experience of learning new skills is centered around management, funnily enough, because obviously through URY, I decided to become the head of music. And that was something that I never thought I'd do, and I never thought I'd want to do. But it was a really great sort of like experience to see what it's like running a team and doing music related things, which I still really enjoy. But running a team was something that I'd not done previously, and as a new skill to learn, it's very valuable. But it doesn't matter whether it's that intense as management. It can be whether I said before, whether you learn to cook for the first time, or whether you want to learn a new sport that you've never tried but you've always thought like, ooh, that'd be exciting to do at uni. And I think it can just be a case of use that 3 years at uni to learn some new skills, and I think it'll benefit you way more than just doing your degree ever would. That's my philosophy on it anyway.
And I feel like for you, now that you've done management of a whole radio station, the music department of it, or etc., when an employer even looks at what you've done, they'd much rather take a person with manager expertise and a degree than somebody with just a great degree. And I think that's, what do you say the hardest thing of the whole year of managing it was?
It was when I was assistant station manager, and it's
you know straight away this is going to be good then. The hardest.
It's when I became assistant station manager, the dynamic changes a lot, and I feel like it's dealing with the dynamic change, because when I was head of music, it wasn't like, not a lot of people had to really answer to me. Like, I had my team, and that was fine. But when I was assistant station manager, the dynamic changed completely, because I was then representing the station wherever I was, and also everyone internally in the station had to answer to me, and then I answered to the actual station manager. So it was experiencing that dynamic change of it, like, being, this isn't so much a game anymore, if you know what I mean. Like
hierarchy,
it wasn't,
big hierarchy.
Yeah, it did lose an element of the fun for me that's why I'm not assistant station manager anymore. But it did lose a bit of the fun for me personally. Other people might react differently, but I did enjoy it. But yeah, the dynamic change was probably the hardest part of that particular aim that I had. But yeah, it was something that I was very grateful to be able to do, and I learnt a lot from doing it, and I'd happily do it again. I will admit I'd happily do it again. It's a lot of fun. And then a final point that I want to make about, like, when my mental health was really starting to improve, was it's only something that I've recently done, and it's been able to openly talk about my experiences and my problems, and it's not something that everyone can do straight away, because a lot of people can be in denial about some of these problems, or just not ready to talk about them. But something that's really helped me is being more honest to my friends about the experiences that I've had, and it had the complete opposite effect that I think a lot of people build up in their head is going to be the case, which is you're going to get, like, shunned or something, or, like, people are going to be, like, super negative towards you, when in my case, and from what I've experienced, it seems to be very much a positive reaction, and a lot of people are, like, really open to listening, and I think it's an important step. But I am fully aware that that is something that comes up later on, rather than something that can happen at the beginning of the process.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid point, because the more you talk about issues, which everyone faces, obviously everyone has issues to different degrees and whatever, but the more you talk about these issues you may be facing, the more you understand them, the more you understand about yourself. And when you understand them, that really does allow you to deal with it. Like any problem, once you know the problem and once you understand it, you can then look at how you can, fix it. But if you don't know the problem, or you don't know what's causing you to feel like this, there's no way to kind of get over the hurdle. So I think, talking about it, it's a great way to kind of help yourself learn about how to deal with it, and your friends might be able to help you, etc.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to move it on now to talk about something a bit more exciting and fun. So I want to talk about some of the early experiences that we both had at university. And just to kick it off, like, what were your expectations going into university? Do you think it was all going to be like wild parties and just like not attending lectures? And what were some of the things that no one really told you that happened?
Yeah. I feel like got to university. My expectation before going was drinking lots. Everybody would be on the sesh, like everybody would love this sesh. Like I'm talking about, like every single person I saw would be a sesh head.
Oh God, I know that. Yeah,
but I think it was quite the opposite when I actually got there. There was a few, like me and this guy called Jack. We were very similar. Like we bonded really well in Freshers Week in the first few weeks, because we were quite similar, loved going out. But then there was quite a lot of people who, were still a bit shy, didn't want to go out as much and that sort of thing. And I think from the movies and stuff like that, and just general expectations, I thought that everybody would be really outgoing, everybody would be really kind of, yeah, everybody would just be really outgoing. I was kind of surprised when a lot of people were still quite, kept themselves to themselves and stuff like that.
So it wasn't as intensely social as you thought it might be.
Yeah, like
in some cases.
I kind of went there, was like, right, I've got to put on a persona of being like a big dog just to make sure I fit in with everybody, because everybody's going to be like really loud and bolshy and drinking loads, and I kind of psyched myself up to try and be like ready to not get pushed in the corner and be like shunned aside because I'm like not as big a personality as them. And then I got to university and I was like in this mindset, and I was like, fucking hell, I look like a bit of an idiot now because everybody's just chill and I'm like quite like, oh yeah, like overhyped. So I think that was kind of, looking back, that was a big thing for me. Just go there and be normal. Like, it's honestly like, yeah, there's no need to try and live up to the expectations that you see in, like, I don't know, all these movies and everything like that. But
going to uni and being normal is, I think that's a really important point, actually. Some of the normal experiences that I think I had was, I don't know if you've ever had this, but I lost my room key card, I think at least 2 or 3 times every month. And there was quite a few occasions where I had to walk to get a new temporary key card whilst wearing PJs, and it was freezing cold weather. And that's just something that I wish I'd been a bit more diligent.
Did you have a key card to go into your room?
Yeah, so it was a key card to get into the building and to the room. So you needed that key card, and I lost it so many times.
Yeah. I remember we had like a key card as well, but only to our door. So if you forgot your key card, just kind of ring the doorbell for ages, and then we had a key to our door. But man, the cold of York is not good either, is it? It's windy.
Oh, it's so windy. That's something that you're gonna find out when you come to York. If you were only there for like a short while on the open day, it's windy all of the time.
And you were on campus East, the new one.
Yeah.
And that wind, you must have been freezing in your pajamas, because that wind blows across like the whole countryside straight to the campus, like East. First building in a mile.
I legit think they built those buildings to like channel the wind to like speed it up.
I'm sure somebody said there was meant to be wind turbines there. I don't know who said that to me. Was it you?
I wouldn't be surprised. No, I don't think I did.
No.
Did I? No, I don't think I did.
But yeah, apparently they wanted to do something like that on that side of the campus.
I'd be interested to know who thought there might be wind turbines there. But another one that I had an experience of was the lads trashing the flat every night before we had the main cleaning night, and it was always dried pasta. I don't know why. It was always dry pasta that they'd throw around, but it was just like, I never really understood the cleaning the cleaning days, because you had to clean the whole kitchen, and then they turn up and sort of do the inspection / deep clean. I'm not sure what that means. But yeah.
The conspiracies around that will be like, right, so if the kitchen is dirty enough, the cleaners won't clean it. But if we clean the kitchen so it's clean, the cleaners will clean the clean kitchen.
It's like a tongue twister.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, it's going around my head then. But yeah, and if it's too dirty, you get fined and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I heard from someone, can't remember who it was, that the main reason is that if every time the cleaners had to go and do like a big clean because we didn't clean it, then it'd take them like weeks to get through all of the student kitchens. But like, it still is a bit confusing.
I guess it's fair enough, though. Fair enough. We shouldn't be, we're 18-year-olds. We shouldn't be throwing around pasta and all that
you would
have
have thought.
Stuff. Yeah.
You would have thought, right, we're about to get interactive now, because this last one is my my terrible experience with Circuit Laundry. Now, I think they're planning to replace Circuit Laundry. I'm not sure.
Oh, please.
So, I know. That reaction alone suggests that it might not be the best.
I hate Circuit Laundry with a passion. I'm sure you do. Every student must hate them, surely.
It's a case of, if you want your washing returned back to you soaking wet after going through a tumble dryer, then use Circuit Laundry.
Yes. What is that about? What, you could dry it, pay like £4 to dry it 3 times, and it would still come back wet.
I know, it's ridiculous. But my experience was this is a bit of an idiot moment for me personally as well. But I put in a wool top into the washing machine and set it to basically didn't realize that you can't put it on a hot setting, and put it in with my other washing. Didn't realize. Came back to it like an hour later, and it had completely shrunk.
Oh no!
To the point where it was for like a 10-year-old child. Like
Goodness me!
It was tiny. I then tried to resurrect the ruined top by conducting a science experiment in my bedroom, because basically my friend told me that if you use this like lotion or whatever that they had and fill a sink with water and then tip the lotion in and submerge the top and then leave it in there for like 10 minutes and then take it out and stretch it, that it'll magically return to the original size.
Wow.
It didn't. I have it with me.
Oh, let's see this right now.
Yeah. It's a lot smaller than it was.
Oh, that is tiny. That is ridiculously tiny.
Do you notice the bottom? Like the bottom is curling in. It's not
Yeah,
as bad as
yeah.
it was. It's not as bad as it was, but you'll be able to see on the camera.
You know, that's a nice jumper as well. I'm disappointed,
is.
Liam.
And
You should
it's-
complain to
yeah.
Circuit Laundry, write them an angry email, and just blame them and get them to buy you a new wool jumper.
Despite the fact that it was definitely my fault.
Despite that fact, yes.
Yeah. I saying that though, I do hope they managed to change Circuit Laundry.
Yeah, it's not
'Cause
ideal.
It's expensive as well. It's too expensive.
We did the maths. Even for one person in our house, it would be cheaper for us to get a washing machine, buy it from Argos, put it in our kitchen, and use that. We'd
Yeah.
as a house, we'd save so much money. Obviously, electricity and stuff, but
I don't know
Yeah,
how you
it's-
get that around the college team.
yeah, they wouldn't be
But-
too fond of it. But they
No.
should probably charge us a bit more and give us built-in washing machines. Really, much more
Yeah, I'd
efficient
say
for
so.
them.
Yeah. Just a last thing about Circuit Laundry as well is, I don't know if this was the case for your college, but 100% of the time during term, our washroom was always filled with tons of discarded washing, and it was just socks, pants,
yeah.
trousers just piled in the corner, and it's like, where is it coming from? Like, who's
Where?
doing this?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, yeah, there's, like you say, there's socks randomly on the floor on the top of the washing machines, and there's dust everywhere, and it's just a bit disgusting. Did
Yeah.
anyone ever take out your washing out of the basket, out of the drum to use the machine?
I've never had that, but I've seen it done. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
had it, and I will warn freshers now that I would definitely recommend you set a timer. This is something that I did. If you have the time in the day, when you put your washing in, set a timer on your phone for the exact amount of time it's in there, and then if you can, when it's done, take it out straight away, and just because you will have people. There are some people who will go, diving into that
Yeah,
and they'll take your stuff, and you'll probably lose things.
Any Ralph Lauren polos in that, mate? No, I'll take that. Lovely.
Yeah, if it's the right size, it's theirs. Like,
Yeah, you gotta be careful. That never happened to me, thank goodness. But I never really had any items worth stealing, I don't think. But I've heard one of my mates said he lost his whole all his designer stuff once.
I see. That's the case. You've
And
got
he
to
literally-
definitely weigh it up whether it's worth it.
And
not
after he
take super
waited
expensive.
in the laundry room while his washing machine was going off, because he was like, "Fuck that! I'm not losing all my stuff again. I don't want to lose it." Because you can spend hundreds on clothes, and to lose them is just like, nah.
It's
not
not a good
good.
feeling, as I experienced with that top.
Yeah.
that I bought that very very close to when I actually made that mistake, so it was a bit depressing. We're going to be wrapping up this very soon because we've obviously nearly got to 2 hours, I think.
Damn.
Um,
Yeah.
It flies. I haven't even managed to get through most of the content that I was planning, so maybe you'll be able to come back for a second episode if
If you have me, I'm definitely interested in doing that.
I'm glad to hear. But yeah, I want to just ask you a few final questions.
Yeah. Quick,
so for
cheeky,
those
quick
people-
fire round. Let's go.
Yeah, quick fire round if you want. So yeah, if you obviously for your second year you went to Australia to study there. You went to Sydney.
Yep.
Was that
University
right?
of Sydney.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of real standout things that you thought this is completely different to UK uni culture, or is it really similar?
I
what
think
are the main differences?
in general, university culture is very similar. But the college I stayed at was based on the Cambridge and Oxford system, which meant that, you know, all meals catered, everybody sits together in like a long bench, everybody has really big community events, the colleges have face-offs and sport face-offs, so it's really much more community-based, which was amazing compared to like York or elsewhere in the UK. And I think it's the college system probably more Americanized,
Right.
which is quite, I don't know, like I liked it. I liked it a lot. And I think there's just more, the general vibes in Australia are different. Actually, the biggest thing at University of Sydney, politically, them guys are so much more intense than the UK. Like, you could walk along the main street where all the classes are, and you'd be at least like asked to sign like 10 petitions, handed out 5 flyers, all about kind of like, I don't know, stopping slavery, or not slavery, but like stopping random stuff in like third world countries, and all good causes and stuff like that. But you're literally harassed by it, and then it'd be like, oh, sign this petition to stop somebody trying to enforce this law or something like that. And it really kind of was, I want to say invasive, but like people, and obviously they're like good heart and they got good intentions, but compared to York or elsewhere, there's not that really kind of, there's no, other than election season, there's no real kind of campaigns moving around.
I don't think I've seen too many like real political, apart from some of the strikes towards the end of the last year. I wouldn't really say it's a massive thing at York.
And
Maybe
I think that was maybe just University of Sydney, but that was the big thing that kind of stood out to me, the kind of, the political aspect of everything there. And the political aspect of just university elections there, and they're a big thing, real big thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I've never been abroad to study abroad, and I don't intend to with my plan. But I think it's interesting to examine how there are differences. And I mean, Australia's not too far and away from our own culture, I wouldn't think.
Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. What do you wish you'd been told about university when you were in first year? What do you wish you could go back and maybe tell yourself or tell people?
If I could go back and tell myself something, I don't know, I would probably say like just finding the right balance between everything. So not going ham and just going out, and not doing no university work and just playing sport. Just kind of, making sure you have a balance of going out, balance of football, balance of university work. And I think a big learning point actually would be making sure you don't let bridges with certain people and certain friends burn, as in not contact somebody for, let's say, 3 or 4 weeks or months or whatever, and lose that friendship or that bridge or that connection you may have had at one point, because you never know
a really good point.
How you're going to kind of connect with people again, or if you're going to need someone, or if like you might end up back with them if you did kind of had that, if you maintain that connection, and then you could go on to be best friends or whatever. Really making a conscious effort not to let bridges burn would be the one thing I'd say to myself.
That's a really good point, actually, and I think that's something I will second, because there is that sense that early on you don't realize that you can see these people like every day, and if you do something that maybe you made a mistake, or you should definitely maybe try and work at fixing any relationships that maybe you for whatever reason didn't pan out. But yeah, absolutely. Before we wrap up and finish this first episode of the university and everything in between,
let's go. Name. What a great podcast! I love it.
What were some things that you look back on now from 3 years at university that you really are glad that you did, and you're maybe indebted to for the experience that you had?
I think one of the first things I think I really am indebted to is just communication, and kind of just pushing myself out to go and talk to people who I don't really know too well. So I remember the whole reason why I got involved really in York TV and film, and which really drove my next 3 years, was in first year. I knew this girl that did film and TV. I didn't really know her too well. I just heard that she was doing it. And I went up to her and asked her, how do you get involved with the student films? And she basically, I can't remember her name now, but she told me what Facebook group I need to join and did it for me. And
that's great.
Yeah, so that's how I got involved in everything, because that's where they post castings. So really pushing myself out there to go and speak to this girl I didn't know and ask her to help was something that I think really changed my whole experience. So yeah, that kind of essence of just doing it, just going and talking to her. I could have been like, I don't know, I'll just leave it and find someone else. But just going to trying to go and do it is a really big thing. Yeah. What was the question again? I've completely forgotten now.
Don't worry, yeah. It's things that you would look back on for the last 3 years that you're very indebted to for maybe getting you through the experience if it's situation, or that you're just really glad that you did. And
definitely that girl there and doing that situation. A big thing, I mean, you've already said it completely, but sport. I mean, athletics was such a big thing for me throughout my whole university experience. Now, I'm not really that good. I do get faster and I do improve, but regardless of if I had a bad day or I was stressed out, I know that I could just go on a Monday and Wednesday to the track and, just run it out, fresh air, a group of people with similar goals, similar ambition. We're all the same kind of mind on that day and in the hour. And that really kind of helped me get through any bad experience or bad day or stressful day I had. So that's another thing. And then finally, I would say, what other experience? I mean, obviously studying abroad is great. But I went to lectures and I did complain about it, but I feel like I may as well, they're like 2 hours a day. You may as well go to them just purely because it gives you structure, gives you routine. And I think, that was a good thing that really shaped my university experience.
I think those are some really important things to end this first episode on. I hope if people have been watching on YouTube and Facebook and listening to it on whatever podcast sharing site that I've managed to acquire for this podcast, that they've enjoyed the first episode and you've gotten something out of it. And stay tuned for the next few weeks where we'll be covering plenty more topics with a variety of interesting people, and some quite famous names hopefully coming to. Yeah,
I've heard you got some very big names. I'm not going to spoil it, but I heard you got some very big names coming on. I'm just going to say that.
It's exciting times. But thank you very much, Dylan, for coming on and chatting with me for this 2 hours.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you very much.
It's been great fun, and we will catch you next week with the next few episodes. See you then.